Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good week so far. And this week, I wanted to invite Arron Branch, who runs Social Agendas. And, me and Arron have been following each other for a little bit, and I think he can add a lot of value to a lot of you guys who are starting out businesses and wanting to start in the agency space and are not 100% sure on, some of the challenges that you may face or how to scale, perhaps, and etc. So, that's kind of what I wanted to target this conversation really to be about mainly. So thank you so much for Arron, if he is listening once again, for joining me, and I'll let him explain now briefly who he is and what he does.
So my name is Arron Branch. I am the founder and CEO of Social Agendas Marketing. We're an agency that is now comprised of 20 in-house staff members, and we specialize in Facebook and Instagram advertising, content creation, email marketing, and training also. So we also have a done with you side to the business where we help businesses learn how to do their own marketing in-house with their own staff members. In a nutshell, that is who we are and who I am.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's great to see. I mean, as I said, as we briefly discussed before, starting the podcast specifically, I mean, I've been following your kind of, I guess, journey, not very long, but long enough to sort of have a gauge on, how you've grown the company. And for me, I think the main thing that strives you apart in what you do is obviously the doing it to a very high level in regards to the advertising side, but also the fact that you don't, or you have strategies or have elements in place where you can teach someone like myself, or someone who may listen to this perhaps, or etc, someone who's absolutely has no idea what to do with ads or how to do ads from the start, and I think that's something which I think is going to be very valuable but also very useful. I mean, when what was the reason for you wanting to do that? Because I think the natural question there would be, aren't you shooting yourself in the foot specifically? Because surely isn't the main point there you want to get hired to do someone's ads instead of like, let me show you how to do it,
100%. And often look, we don't just train businesses. We also have an agency training program, which you mentioned, very briefly there. And the whole reason why we offer training services is because it's all about knowing what a business actually needs to get to the next place that they need to go. Now, often the training service is usually for startups. So it's for companies who have limited budgets, and instead of tying themselves into a long-term contract, 3-6 month contracts where they have to bank on an agency being able to do and perform at the level they need to succeed, that's where we introduce the training product. Because often when they're starting up, they don't have even enough inventory to actually make sense of giving it to an agency. Because if the agency does do their job and sells out all of their products and stock before they can get a restock, all that means is that there's going to be a delay, there's going to be pauses to the campaign, which is what I started to notice. So instead of giving the service that we would actually make more money on, more revenue, more income, what we actually use is the training side of the business as an incubator to teach these businesses how to do it themselves. And then what naturally occurs, which is a great, result of the work we do with the training programs, is they'll scale up. And then with so many orders to fulfill, for example, if it's one of our e-com clients, they'll naturally need more support. Now, what are the two options? They can go and hire somebody independently and take a risk that this person knows how to operate Facebook ads at a high professional level, or they can just tap in to the agency that has taught them how to get the results and success they've had. And now instead of having to go and hire somebody, interview them, make sure they have the appropriate skills, make sure you have a place where they can have a working environment and enjoy themselves. A lot of startups don't have that. They don't have these kind of cultural things in their business. I was the same 5 years ago. Why not just tap in to our existing talent pool at Social Agendas and then let us take over the campaigns when affordability is less of a problem? So the training naturally feeds the done for you service. So instead of jumping straight to the done for you service because we have more vested interest in selling a done for you marketing service because of the revenue that that would bring, why not just make sure we put the clients first and get them the result, and then they can make a decision on whether they want to grow their in-house team, or supplement their business with our team members, which is it's a win-win. It's a no-brainer in a lot of senses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it it shows that you're not scared to also show how you do it, right? Because I think there's a misconception. This kind of leads on to my next question, which is going to be, oh, isn't Facebook ads and Instagram ads easy, right? I get it all the time. It's like, oh, I've got a promotion. I just press promotion. I pay Facebook some money, and then there you go. I get some sales. What would you say to people who do say, Facebook ads are or Instagram ads are easy?
I'll say it's easy to lose money very fast. It's very easy to give Mark Zuckerberg a boost to his share price by spending 10 grand a day. Look, it's all about perspective. It's all about skill sets. Is Facebook and Instagram a platform that has been designed to make it very easy for anybody off the street to come in and advertise and press that promote button? Absolutely. You are 1 to 3 clicks away from spending money on the platform. That is by design. Now, when we're actually talking about, is it easy to set up Facebook ads? 100%. Is it easy to get and generate consistent, profitable, and scalable results using Facebook ads? That's a completely different question. And that's the question that we get hired to find the solution for. Profitability, scalability, and really just making sure that you're always focused on the return on investment. So yes, on the surface, it is easy. Just as someone might say, building a house. You've just seen today, I was on one of our development sites for property agendas, which is going to be a whole new thing anyway. But is it easy to plaster a wall? Yes. Would I want to do that myself? No. Because the time it takes me to plaster that wall myself, somebody who's doing this day in, day out, somebody who's practiced this skill set for years, somebody who's done hundreds of walls, will not only do it probably to a higher quality and a higher standard, less mistakes, less opportunity for failure and that wall coming down. And thirdly, they'll probably get more out of the materials that they're given to do that work as well. So you tie that into advertising, they'll get more, they'll probably get more out of your budget. And not just with social agendas, with your agency, with any agency out there. Why do we even exist? Because it's not just about getting more out of your budget, but it's also about making sure you're working with people who are doing this day in, day out, because that quality of understanding of the marketplace is what's going to give you the edge in generating more out of your ad spend. So that would be my response if they were willing to listen to it.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, for me, I think the main thing is going to be, understanding the difference between hiring someone who lives and breathes social media, lives and breathes advertising, lives and breathes content, lives and breathes, that process, over someone who, I'm sure you've had it, I've had it, oh, we'll just give it to the first girl in the office or the youngest person in the office. They can do our social media, they can write a tweet, they can do this, they can do that, they can do this. I think for me, there's a very big difference between the two, right? You've got one they're on social media, they understand how to consume it, and then there's another curating for it. Because I think a trap which some business owners may get into, and I don't know whether you found, and I'll pass back to you in a moment, is consuming is not the same as curating. In my opinion, it's not. Because consuming will allow you to see what other people are doing, and you can use that to see what you should be creating, of course, but curating is actually, in my opinion, a lot harder to make sure that it's curating from the right messaging in regards to what you're doing and for the business, but also to make sure that it's going to be, that return on investment, especially if you're going to bring someone in. But also then curating is actually a lot more time consuming than people initially think.
100%. Yeah.
Have you found,
I agree with that 100%, because again, the question always becomes, so content creation, obviously that's a massive focus in your agency. You do great things in the space, and naturally an afterthought of that is, how do you distribute that content and make the most of it? Because a lot of these videos that previous to social media marketing, they'll just get stuck on a landing page, stuck on a website, and that's the end of it. Now, a lot of these websites wouldn't be generating traffic, paid traffic, organic traffic, any traffic. So as much as the advertising side is the afterthought to content is usually the precursor to great advertising. And then this is the question that we always have to ask and really fact find with new clients. and that is, what is your content that you want us to run on the front end of your advertising? Now, if that content isn't bang on message, filled with hooks, high enough quality for the social media platforms. Now, when I say quality, I don't mean, we have to have 4K videos. We've had some super successful, massive campaigns shot on mobile, right? So gone are the days where we need the whole production house on every single project. However, if that content isn't up to standard, not just in terms of quality and definition, but with the message, the branding, the hooks, the marketing psychology that needs to be in there, it's ultimately not going to be sustainable. So you have to create and curate that content in line with a marketing strategy, which is usually determined by the outcomes of the advertising campaign our clients want to run. So yeah, I'm 100% in agreement.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's, you wouldn't, when you're talking to your sales reps, in a world where you're in retail, for example, you wouldn't talk to your sales rep to get to have an opinion to a customer and talk to a customer a specific way. But then when you're on social media, you would want the same kind of messaging to come across because you want to be perceived a certain way or come across a certain way. So I think it's important to have the right people in the right places. And something which, from the time I followed you and what you do with social agendas, which I found really interesting, is you don't do everything yourself, right? Like, for as long as I've known you, you've never done something that, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this, right? You find people who are good at what they do and you then facilitate a space for them to grow, facilitate a space for them to be able to learn from you, but also from others. And, I think for me, that's what, I guess, that's part of why social agendas is how good it is at what it does. But also, the question there's going to be, what role do you feel having a team over hiring a, solo person, for example? It's, what do you benefit with having a team, and then is there a pro to having, one person in Pacific, or a smaller agency that maybe has a smaller team like mine, for
Yeah.
example?
So look, the simple answer is you need both. Now, I've run the agency in three different models, and that would be, I've run the freelancer model, which was me, jack of all trades, doing everything from the ads to the client management to the content creation, the editing. It helps that I had a media degree, but you're learning on the job and you're trying to get the results that you want the client to receive all on your own. And then I transitioned. I got that to a place where I was making a tremendously good income from the business, and I realized I was burning out. I was getting exhausted. So I went to the outsourcing model, which is what is promoted every corner of social media. You look for these business models, a 4-hour work week, all of this. Oh, outsourcing is the dream. Get everyone else, you get the job, you have the cake, you divvy up the slices, dish it out to all of these amazing people in the world who are just waiting to contribute to your business. And wow, your clients are happy. I got that to a certain level, multiple six figures, still making a really good profit margin. And with each of these models, the profit margin just goes down and down and down. And then what happened is I got that outsourcing model to a place where, look, some of my contractors, unbelievable. A lot of the contractors were clients who had trained with me as freelancers, learned ads from me, so I knew I could trust them. But even still, oh, please pardon the dogs as well, they're getting excited. They were contractors I knew I could trust, but then it becomes a place where, okay, I need a project manager to actually oversee all of this deliverables of the company. And then naturally, you just start to get frustrated. Quality assurance comes into question. Freelancers, contractors start disappearing for days on end, living their life naturally. You're getting outbid on contracts. So somebody comes along, and this is the problem with not having exclusivity with your staff and your team members delivering projects, because they just it's a bidding war. They'll go to the highest bidder of their time. So if somebody comes along and says, love the work you're doing over there with Arron Branch and Social Agendas, why don't you come over here and I'll pay you 30% more to do the same job for me? It's natural that they'd be attracted and distracted by that. So unreliable at scale, which led me to the model that we currently run, which is in-house, where we have 20 in-house team members, 24 including our contractors. But that ties into the point. I thought in-house is the only way to go. I will not do any contractors. I will not get any suppliers on board ever again. I'm living the dream. Then we start trying to scale in-house, which we are doing a fantastic job of. The team are unbelievable. All the credit goes to them. But we start filling these positions. We start generating, more and more hires in the business. And then the question comes about, which is what is the biggest inhibitor to growth in the agency space? And I have discovered this over the past 1.5 years, I would say. It's we can't hire and train really amazing marketers quick enough for the demand that we can generate in the marketplace. I am an expert marketer. I've done it for 5 years. You know, I've done this. I've just done it. I'm not even gonna reel off the headlines. I'm doing it right now. Trust me. I know my shit. But to transmute all of that information into other individuals is extremely time consuming. And the one thing I always underestimated was how long it takes to even get somebody who has pre existing knowledge, somebody who has all of the qualifications in the world about marketing, but to get them to be able to actually practically contribute to doing great work for clients is a whole nother story. It's a whole nother commitment. So, what is the solution? It is again having your core in-house group of talented, developing marketers across the board, from content, ads, social media management, email, you name it, trainers. I've got a lead ads trainer. I've got all these different people in-house. Very blessed and grateful to have found them and for them to have come and joined us. However, we are a growing company. We are just at the beginning of our journey. 5 years is absolutely nothing when you look at business on a broader landscape. And now we're in a place where we're continually hiring every single month. You see a bit of the social media. I've always got new team members joining up. And every single month we're expanding, but we're doing it in a sustainable way now where we can train and give them the time they need, the resources they need to develop the skills. But naturally, to make sure our clients get the best of the best, we're going to need additional support, which is why there's a small group, a small exclusive list of suppliers that are all pre-vetted, that came through my start and scale mentorship for agency owners, contractors, freelancers. So I've worked with them. I've seen the back end of their businesses. For them to even get accepted onto that program, they have to hit certain criteria. My team know they are non-negotiables on that list. So everyone who comes through are great people, basically. No idiots. And they're trustworthy and they're people who I can vouch for. Using that list, I've got amazing people in-house on my internal team. And whenever we have an overspill of work, of business that needs to be executed, campaigns that need to be built, we collaborate with other suppliers to make sure we can stick to deadlines and get the best possible work done. So it isn't all, there is no extreme dichotomy of I'm either all in-house or I'm all contractor. Why is this what's being promoted out there? I know why. It's because it sells, but everybody wants an easy answer. I'm either this or I'm this, clean. There's always a gray area. And to sustainably grow an agency where your only inhibitor is hiring and training people quick enough to contribute, you're always going to need suppliers that you can trust and that can do amazing work and generate amazing results. That is where we're at right now. So you need both. And I hope that was as short as I could make it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's really interesting. I mean, for me, as I say, because, for someone who, is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 steps behind you, right? Looking at the company and looking at what you're doing, it's interesting. I think we may go different paths in the same way anyone listening to this will go in a different path. But, I think that might, and what I was thinking there as you were, explaining was, what would you say is the main thing, because it sounds like what you're explaining is exponential growth, right, through time. What would you say is the main thing that's allowed Social Agenda specifically to exponentially grow?
I think there's three main things. The first is having systems and processes to generate enough sales opportunities for the business. So that's having your own marketing funnels and strategies ready to go, ready to rock. Then there is the second, which is having great team members and great people contributing to your business, working with you, working on client campaigns. And then the third thing is probably just building reputation. That is so important. It's always third on the list, but that is the aftermath of doing great work, I should say, is the reputation you build. Now, why do look, it's all about perspective. Why do some businesses come to us when someone else has often quoted them less, right? And it's because when they work with us, they understand that there's a certain standard that is guaranteed, and that standard will never be compromised out of selfish reasons. The reason is I've got a certain level of pride which no money could ever overcome or make me want to, compromise. I will never compromise my reputation for any monetary value. And many opportunities have came for that with, people approaching the brand, people who want us to work on their companies for exponential, sums of money. But I know that they're just genuinely not the right projects for our reputation, for our brand association. And again, I'd add to that list. The fourth thing is getting really clear on all of the non-negotiables for clients. I referenced it with the start and scale, but it's across the board. We have printed on the wall in front of our marketing consultants' desks a list of all the reasons you are not allowed to onboard a new client. Right now, for these digital marketers, they sit there and they do strategy calls day in, day out, talking about the roadmap to helping businesses grow. They talk about advertising. They talk about the entire plan. It is literally free strategy calls all day long. And during that call, if they get a sense and an understanding that there's certain things that we don't compromise on, rude, arrogance, obnoxious behaviors, there's a whole list, dude. I won't go into the entire list, but because we're so clear on the people that we do not want to work with, that naturally leaves the gaps for the right clients to emerge. And the best thing for exponential growth is always going to be having a great reputation to fall back on whenever you're bidding for work. That is so important.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's one of those things where some people, when they either affiliate themselves with another business, or they're working with another photographer, perhaps, or another videographer, or another agency, etc. I think that there is a misconception sometimes where, especially if you're quite new in business, because you want the work, you're like, oh my god, this agency's asked me to work for them. Oh my god, right? That you don't think as much as you potentially should, because that you are just overwhelmed with this want, and I think it also goes with a fear aspect of, like, when you're at start and you need to make money to live, and etc., and you need to make a living. It's like, okay, well, this is a really good job from a just financial perspective, but it means you'll sometimes overlook possibly rudeness, for example, or those other little things that you've kind of hinted at already, and I think the difference for me anyway is when you start not waiting for clients, or not just taking every single job, or knowing to say no when the project doesn't suit, whether that's you don't want to do it, as in it's not a project you can get excited about, number one. Number two, or you don't think you can have the capacity to do it, right? Either or a mix of both. In most cases it's a mix of both. I think it's sometimes challenging for a business owner to say no, because they're like, this is a ridiculous amount of money, I've never earned this much in my life, how could I possibly say no? And the question comes there for people who may be listening to this, because a lot of the people who do listen to the podcast are starting business owners, they are entrepreneurs, they are starting photographers, videographers, want to be agency owners, want to be advertising, etc. They want to be in that field. For it could be a job offer from an agency, for example, right? Like, a agency owner sees potential in this person, right? And they're like, actually, would you like to come and work for us, right? Instead, and pulling them away from their thing, right? They've created a company, they want to do it. What advice would you give to those people who are either in that situation, or they're in a situation where they have a client that approaches them, their agency, whether that's their one person, two person, doesn't matter, and it's for a ridiculous amount of money in their head, but they actually, can see, oh, this person might be difficult to work with, or this person is a bit rude, or you can see some issues there, but you don't want to say no because it's a really good opportunity to grow the company.
Happens all the time. And the advice that I would give to anybody in that position is evaluate your circumstances, because if you need that money to live, you absolutely have to provide that service to get an income to fill your fridge. I always have a great saying, if I do say so myself, which is you can't feed the homeless with an empty fridge. So, before you can have your massive impact and you can contribute in all the ways and the betterment of society and everything that you want to do, make sure you can fill your own stomach and you can actually supply some resources through generating business. And look, the same rules that I apply now, 5 years on, are not the same rules that I applied when I was starting up. I would literally work with any business. I would be desperate. And that desperation can lead you into some very questionable deals, questionable supplier contracts where you're supplying businesses that you don't necessarily even enjoy working with or enjoy the product that you're selling. You have no passion for their industry, their niche. But at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision. Is this a business that you're doing for a lifestyle goal where you just want to have the flexibility and freedom of being a consultant, a freelancer? Or is this a business that you're trying to maximize for capital gain, which for me, you have to get very clear, and that will give you all the direction and thoughts that you need to know. We're not, every project that we take on, it's nothing to do with me. The business has evolved past my personal preferences. So what I'm really in charge of overseeing now is every department and the policies that we have and the rules that we set for every team member in our organization to make sure that our common goals and our key objectives that are set from my level are executed all the way down the organizational chart. And for people who don't have that yet, suck it up. I would say you got to crack on, get the job done, do what you have to do, because 95% of businesses fail for a reason, and it's usually because people are being far too picky for where they are in their business journey, especially in the agency space, which is what I'm alluding to the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important, and I'm glad you mentioned that, to understand where you are. Right, like a lot of what you're talking about is understanding the perspective of where you are and where you're going to be in 3 months, 6 months, a year, wherever it is. And do you take, and it's a motto I've had as well. Are you willing to, grit your teeth now? Right, and I get this because I worked in retail for many, many years, and if anyone who works in retail will know, there's a lot of situations where you have to grit your teeth and do it anyway. And if you're at the start of business, you should grit your teeth and do it anyway. But you're also in the goal of saying, you need to remember, and I need to remember myself, I don't need to have these clients forever. It's only for a period of time. It's only for a year. It's only for 3 months. It's only for 6 months, etc. Right? Whatever the need is at that time, right? There will always be new clients. There will always be higher demand. There'll always be more demand as long as you continue moving forward. I think for me, and the main thing that I think is important to, I guess, explore or discuss is what characteristics, because I'm sure you've had times in those 5 years where you've genuinely thought, because it obviously wasn't going, maybe it was, maybe it's only gone right all 5 years and there's never been a problem, and etc. But what kind of, from the darker days, right? Like when stress is piling up and you're pulling out your hair and what got you through those? Because I think that's the difference between a business that will be able to get to 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc., and continue to grow and continue to this and continue to that, and one that will go, actually, no, I'm just gonna, stop, quit, whatever, and go get a job because it's easier.
The darker days, I think the darker days are where you're struggling to understand the systems and processes you need to operationally run at a profit, right? You're sucking up all the money into your own personal income. You don't have enough clients to sustain paying yourself what you feel you deserve and you're owed because you're running and doing everything, versus having being able to pay yourself what you deserve and what you're owed, but also having a profit left over so that you can employ others and scale your business. Those confusions and frustrations are only natural in the business journey for everybody, because nobody's born with all of this knowledge on how to run and scale businesses. It's just something that you acquire as a skill through experience. So the first thing I'd say as a characteristic is, yes, have that resilience, but enjoy it. I started a basketball career and I went to America on a scholarship for 3 years. I managed to achieve that, and I started playing only 3 years. I was 16 when I started playing properly organized basketball. And the only way I got to go on that scholarship was because I just developed, and I was awful. I was embarrassingly bad that first year. That second year, started to understand a few things. And this is basketball, but it literally is an identical roadmap to business in a way. You're going to be awful. You're going to make a tremendous amount of mistakes. You're going to be laughed at and embarrassed at times. You're going to suffer inevitably unless you have funds. But even with funds, I've seen guys and girls come into the agency space with a nice chunk of 30 to 40k in investment capital to begin their journeys from their friends, their own hard work, and maybe even family members. And they've made even worse decisions with that money than anybody who doesn't have money, because they think that there's these ultimate answers that running adverts is the solution to every problem, when it's absolutely not. Running an advert won't make you a good manager of people. Running an advert won't make you a great salesperson and understanding people's needs. That's just one example. So the characteristics, look, you need to be resilient. You need to understand that everything is a process, and that you have to have that optimistic outlook to get to where you want to go. And you are inevitably going to suffer. It's like Buddha says, life is suffering. Business, cross out life, business is suffering. And even today, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's extremely challenging on a day-to-day basis. Every day, every week, we have new operational challenges that we have to overcome. Suppliers, balancing the equation of suppliers and demand with in-house staff, contractors, all of these moving parts. Having the right systems and operations bring their own challenges, their own darker days come with those. And ultimately, you have to have an end game. You have to know what you're in it for. The agency game, the consulting game, the freelancing game, these are cash flow generating activities. How you put that money to work when you've got it and you've earned it is what's really important. What's your wealth building plan? How do you actually use that finance and put that money to work for you, so that you're not only working and generating a wage and a salary and a dividend, but you're also building a roadmap where you can become financially free. So you can lean on that. If you don't have that in your roadmap, if you don't understand that the be all and end all isn't just giving yourself a job, it's how do you get capital that you can invest and become financially free, you are going to suffer a lot more than the people who do understand that. And the only way to get to that place is by sharing everything you've earned with other people who can help you in your business from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, just because I've made X amount now, I need to actually invest half of that, or if not more, back in so I can earn the same again, and that's how you keep moving things forward. And I think I think that's the main takeaway here, if someone's going to take it away, that is, in business, for me, I always try to say, well, look, okay, I made this much, okay, we're going to invest this much, going to keep this much, I'm going to invest, personally invest outside of the business this much, right? And that's allowed me to not be like super financially stable, because I haven't done it for very long, but like the longer I do it, the more stable I become, right? And from what I found specifically, I mean, and I, in some ways, I asked, the next question is going to be like COVID related specifically, but it feels a little bit a broken record at this point, because I think the age old question is, how did you deal with lockdowns, or how are you dealing with lockdowns, or how has the company pivoted to do with lockdowns? So I don't want to ask that direct question, but I think it's one of those things where, let's wind the clock back nearly a year, which is a bit crazy to think about, but let's wind the clock back a year when, what I think the question there is, what has changed, if anything, or how have you pivoted the company or changed the company or changed your systems or added systems when COVID became more of a issue in regards to, with people working at home and etc. And that from an agency owner's
Yeah,
perspective.
so there has been change. It was ultimately something that was unavoidable when it comes to personnel, the environment, precautions. So right now we have most of our delivery team remote, so they're working from home. We have had to invest a lot more in equipment to allow these guys and girls to go portable. So they've got company laptops with the softwares that we operate from, which are pre-installed on those laptops. So there's been operational additions to cost. There has been challenges that we've had to upgrade our systems to allow for the effective communication that needs to take place, not only on our project management system, but on our telecommunication system. We've installed a software which allows us all to have phone numbers. Every single person in the business has their own landline and mobile number, which they can use through the laptop, through the company laptop. But psychologically, how have things changed in terms of, that's the personnel challenges that every business has faced. It's not just us. So, again, just suck it up, move with the times. But from a commercial perspective, we've doubled down, we've tripled down, we've maximized this opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity for anybody who's in the marketing space, the online space, the content space, you name it. The digital world is more empowered than ever before. If you're a marketer, if you're an agency owner, a freelancer, whatever, you should be very, very excited about any kind of restrictions that mean businesses have to take everything they were doing and do it online now. Previously, there was a choice. I don't think anybody in their right mind, even just from the discussions with my clients, anybody in their right mind who is ignoring creating an online store to run alongside their physical store, their physical location, is ludicrous. You will not find somebody who can ignore that as an option, as a primary option now, because if you're going to be at the whim of government restrictions to trading because you don't have online stores set up, you don't have marketing funnels driving traffic to your offers, with or without your physical location, you are destined for doom. Them darker days are coming for you. And as an agency, look, I'm completely against some of the restrictions that have been put in place, but that's a whole other conversation. But as an agency, I feel like we've benefited from it. And I'm very proud to say that we didn't sit on our hands hoping that things would get better and change back to normal. We said, you know what, let's execute at 10x levels and jump headfirst into this new economy and these new opportunities. It's paid off. We've grown massively through lockdown. When things open back up, I can't wait because the opportunity, the industries that are opening back up are going to need more marketing than ever before. Just look at the government support for some of these businesses. They're talking about new grants to help reopen the businesses. So not only we're going to give you guys in the hospitality sector money to sustain your lives, albeit nowhere near enough for most of these businesses when they're operating, but we're going to give you funding and finance to reopen your enterprise. Where does all that money need to go? Yeah, you might have some refurbishments, whatever, but it needs to go in relaunching and getting massive awareness back to your business. So who's going to help facilitate that? It's going to be the marketers and the agencies, or they'll put themselves at the risk of doing it and not being effective and potentially risking the next 2 years of trade for their business.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because it leads on quite nicely to the next question I was going to ask is, this digital era which we're seeing and which we've seen, do you think it's going to is that it now? Is this the way people are going to shop? Is this the way people are going to advertise? Is this the way attention is going to now go for now, for the future, right? Is that would you say that's it now, right? If you're not on digital, you need to be, because it's not going to go back.
100%. And I'm not biased. It's just simply a fact of life. And when I started this business 5 years ago, Facebook ads were not mass market products. There were very few businesses that I approached that said, yes, I understand exactly what Facebook ads are. I understand the value they'll bring to my business. I was educating more people than ever before in the beginning because it hadn't the mass adoption of advertising in the UK or the US even, that was a bit further ahead. But in the global economy, the mass adoption of social media advertising wasn't understood or undertaken. And now everyone understands more than ever how powerful it is. Even with the restrictions on iOS that have just come out, people were losing their minds in the marketing space. I had messages stacking and piling up in my inbox from clients I've trained, in my DMs from everybody who was worried about it. And it hasn't affected spending one bit. Not having the data of how the middle of your funnel is performing, the top of your funnel is performing, because ultimately there is no going back. If all we got was money in versus the business money that we can count in our bank accounts, people will still be advertising on social media because there's nothing like it. What with iOS, with lockdown, with you name whatever restrictions or inhibitors that come out, are people going to now say, "Oh, you know what? I'm not going to put that content on my Facebook ad. I'm going to put that on a billboard, one billboard for 1 month, and let's see how many conversions we get out of that." It is not going to happen. Nothing to say that billboards are bad, by the way. That's very effective, but there's no comparison between the two when we're talking about direct response marketing. So yeah, there is no going back. I'm very grateful that there's no going back because it only helps us. And yeah, I'm really excited for when things open up again because all that money flooding into the economy, all of that confidence back into the spending habits of everybody only means more and more online transactions that we can help facilitate.
Yeah, so I completely agree. And, just building off the billboard thing, unless it's a digital billboard, of course, once you've kind of set your message and set what your goal is going to be for that, you can't really change it. With Facebook ads, for example, if there's a change or, if you want to be more, you want to target this specifically or, you want to change the messaging a little bit, you can do that. That's, I think, the main benefit or one of the main benefits to doing a Facebook ad over doing a billboard, right? Of course, if it's a digital billboard, then you can change it in the same way you would change a Facebook ad. But it's also different demographics, and also I think the reality is going to be you should do both. There's no I'm going to do this and instead of doing this, it's you should technically
Yeah,
do both
but
if
but
you can.
many businesses don't have the affordability to do both. So it becomes about how do you make your budget as efficient as possible, and there's nothing more scalable globally than Facebook and Instagram ads. It's just phenomenal, and I'm very lucky really to have started when I did because I had a head start on everybody, and it's paying dividends now because literally paying dividends, but it is paying dividends now because we've been doing this specifically on Facebook and Instagram ads for 5 years. We're not a Google ads agency. We're not a YouTube ads agency. We're not a web development agency, which is usually all the different agencies that have just bolted on a Facebook and Instagram ad service to their existing clients. But we went straight into Facebook and Instagram ads because I needed a service which I was confident would generate results for my clients straight away so I could build a reputation in the industry that I was working with. And that has given us a head start. And even now, spending hasn't been affected. There's always news, boycotts on Facebook ads from different stores and departments because of privacy, this, that, the other. Ultimately, when it comes to business, getting impressions, converting those impressions, there is no going back.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's, it goes alongside what we talked about earlier about what is your front end content going to be, right? And how do you kind of let that stand apart? Because it's, there's two sides of this ad, right? It's the content itself, and then there's the strategy that goes behind the ad, right? To put it in front of the right people and etc. as well. And for me, I see them as two separate skill sets that are both extremely important to be done right. And if one of them isn't done to the same level, it will hurt the other one, from what I've seen, and, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I know I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to wrap up soon, but I like to add in the end of the podcast to give you an opportunity to ask me a question, perhaps if you have one, or throw in a topic for us to discuss for just a couple of minutes. If there is anything that you
look,
may
the
have thought,
content. I am actually genuinely interested in this response of yours, because you focus purely on the content side of things as your primary service. Of course, lockdown restrictions have inhibited the ability to go out on shoot locations. How you conduct your shoots is definitely going to be impacted as well moving forwards for the foreseeable future. How have you pivoted to making sure that you're still a content creation house and you're generating content for clients, not just necessarily from going on shoots and doing physical, interactions with them?
I mean, in answer to has shoots been affected? Of course they have. I mean, the first lockdown was very, very strict in regards to basically you weren't allowed out really at all, right? Second lockdown, again, there was some changes and etc. But as lockdowns were slowly eased and there was more understanding within the filmmaking and video and podcasting communities to understand what you can and can't do, then it got easier, right? So technically. Technically, that's all right. Technically, I can go and film, but there is certain restrictions and such that need to be fulfilled, right? So mask wearing and social distancing, etc. as well. But in answer to how did I pivot, I mean, a year ago today, I looked at how did I for the first month or two of lockdown when I didn't have any work, how did I pivot my content creation specifically for the company? And then how can I relate that to the work I was doing for clients? So, I now have built a stronger company because of that, because I can now, I now offer the ability to work one-to-one with a client to help them understand, well, maybe where is their sales funnel? Maybe there's a problem with it. Do they understand that do they even have one? Also, do they understand how their messaging is coming across? Do they understand what content they could make themselves using their phone? Etc. As we discussed earlier, it's not always about having that 4K video or having that, crazy expensive camera or etc. It's actually about the content that they're speaking or that they're coming across and the story they're trying to tell. So it's about helping. The first thing that I kind of developed and how I pivoted was to help business owners with the storytelling aspect and with the consulting aspect and as a one-to-one. But also, as I got into podcasting more, I suggested, well, why don't you launch a podcast, right? This gives you a piece of long-form content that we can cut up into smaller chunks to use on your social media when you nail points specifically about whatever would be, in your trade or etc. Or it also allows you to talk a long form, invite your clients on, invite some guests on, to give that understanding to your ideal client, to give your, and also to let you get that message out to say, hey, look, I can still do this, I can still do this, and I can still do this. But, when I can do this, I'm still taking bookings for that. Like hairdressers right now. No, they can't technically cut hair, but they can take bookings with cutting hair, for when they're allowed to open again. And there will be a surge, using them as a key example, there'll be a very big surge of people needing haircuts, right? That's one of the main jokes in lockdown has been like, oh, what's your lockdown hair like? Oh, what's your lockdown hair like? Because we haven't had that. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but for me, that was kind of my thought process and how I came about it as well. Because it wasn't an easy thing, right? It just kind of happened and was like, well, okay, well, right. So I can't go outside, and what it mainly showed me was if I can't go outside, I don't make money. So it's like, right, okay, so what am I going to do to change that? And for now, moving forward, even if COVID ends tomorrow, I now have a stronger business because I basically have other ways I can make money outside of being hired to do a video, right? Or being hired to take photos or being hired to do this thing where I have to go somewhere. And it opens up, a larger market for me as well. So yeah, that's what I've found, or that's what I've, in answer to how have I pivoted, that's how I've ended up pivoting, which was, a luck thing more than and a skill thing in respect to, let's look at what I can do. Let's look at what I can control.
For sure. Awesome.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time. For those people who, may be interested in and they don't know who you are, where can they see, what you do with social agendas? Where can they see, that kind of thing, and possibly look to join your training programs or potentially become a client as
Sure.
well?
Arron_branch on Instagram is the best channel to reach me. It's the channel where I spend most of my time. It's where I produce the most content. It's where I do the most updates. So it's AARON_branch. And anybody who's interested in anything towards social agendas, social media marketing, discussions, client stuff, you name it, it's best just to send a DM and reach out and have a friendly chat, an informal chat, because again, it's all about how those relationships start, which are really, really important to us. So we take things slow. We're not in a rush to do anything with anyone. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, I'd be more than happy to give any kind of advice I could on the best route for them to take. But yeah, I want to thank you as well for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. I've had a great chat as well. Really interesting to hear, just at the end there about how you've pivoted as well. It sounds like it's opened some more doors for you. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on.
No, pleasure as always.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gents. I hope you did enjoy that conversation with Arron. As always, I'll leave his links in the description down below for those who may be interested in following his channels and etc. But yeah, it was a really, really valuable chat, and I actually got to find out some little bits of internal information about social agendas that you don't necessarily get to see through social media. So thank you so much for joining me once again. If you did enjoy this piece of content and would like to see more like it, then make sure to leave this video with a like and please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week for a brand new exciting episode of the podcast. So we're going to be interviewing a brand new person. I don't even know who it's going to be yet.